Hello, welcome everyone. This is our another edition of Meet and Greet live broadcasted from Prague, the IT hub of StatsPerform in Prague. My name is Ladislav. I'm working here at StatsPerform as a recruiter, and I will be your host today. I'm not alone over here. There is also my colleague connected in a very close country, and it is in Austria. It is Johannes. Hello, Johannes. Can you hear us well? How are you today?
Hey, I can hear you fine. Fine, thanks. Great being here.
Perfect. So the connection is working.
All right, thank you, Ladislav. So again, welcome everyone to this presentation about Pressbox Live. As Ladislav said, I'm Johannes. I'm a senior software engineer here at StatsPerform in the Graz office in Austria, and I will guide you through our journey as full stack developers on Pressbox Live. So we will start this presentation with an introduction to Pressbox Live, explaining what it is, so that you understand what the product is about before I talk about the tech stack. Then we will take a look at where we started as developers, so our current team. We'll look at the status of the project back then, so to say. Afterwards, we go through the changes and additions we made until the present day. And then what follows is a glimpse into the future of what's ahead of us, what we have planned for next year. And lastly, there will be the Q&A session that Ladislav mentioned already. So let's start with what is Pressbox Live. Pressbox Live in a nutshell is compelling insights, emerging storylines, and decades of data at your fingertips. Of course, that sounds like a cheesy marketing speak, and yeah, it is, but it describes Pressbox Live very well. It's a concise description and just with this, you should know what it is about. But to explain it even further, here's a video demonstrating what PBL enables you to do. Right, so Pressbox Live is a web application for sports coverage, pretty much. It allows our customers to spend more time telling stories and spend less time finding them. So if we think about the compelling insights, emerging storylines, and decades of data at your fingertips, that's exactly that. So you don't have to search around and combine everything. We provide that through Pressbox Live for you. And we do that by providing live and historical data for leagues, for players, for teams, and for match data, all within one app. Currently, we support football, American football, basketball, and cricket. The provided data includes all sorts of information. For example, we have match events, and that means during a match, you have events like goals, shots, fouls, all happening, and that's provided at various points in the application for you to leverage. We have all kinds of statistics for you to spot top performers and outliers. We have insights and trivia that you can present to your audience directly. We have graphics for easier data consumptions. For example, heat maps and trends, or this kind of shot map for basketball here on the screen. Then there are also predictions. One of these is expected goals, or XG, which we've seen in the video, and also live win probability. So during a match, for example, you can see this live win probability changing in real time. And then there's much more, which I can't even list all of them here. So with that, let's take a quick look into the application itself. So I will be switching to the live application. Let's see if we can pick a game. For example, Romania Liga 1. There's not much happening here, but what we can see here is that we have an overview of the events that are happening throughout the match, and then some kind of other information like the lineup, who's currently on the pitch, the cards, and so on. And then we can do some more interesting things. We can take a look at team statistics. And then let's say we want to look only at the first 20 minutes of the match. Then we can just use this bit here, move this around, and then we just have the stats for this part of the game. We can also look at various graphics, which we can then copy paste into our social media applications, for example. And we can always take a look at other statistics, for example, of players. If we want to tell a story about a certain player, how he's performed throughout the game or throughout the season, then we can all look that up from within Pressbox Live, from within one view. And as mentioned, we have various sports here. So this is just for football, but we also have, for example, cricket, which was added this year. And let's see if there's a live game. For example, this one. This is the live win probability that I mentioned earlier. And here we also have various kinds of graphics that you can use and stats and so on. All right, and with that, back to the PowerPoint part. So now you have an overview of what is Pressbox Live. So let's talk about how we as a dev team started out on the project. We started working on the project early to mid 2023, and initially it was just two of us supporting the previous team of developers. We helped out with building basketball features and adding cricket to Pressbox Live. Pressbox Live was built in, or is still built in TypeScript as a Next.js application. Back then, it was based on React 17 and React with Query version 3, with the testing setup being done in Enzyme. Originally, it was built in pure React, and at a later point in time, it was migrated to Next.js, which is relevant later when I talk about the challenges. And at this point in time, the code base was already pretty large. So let's take a look at the high-level architecture of how Pressbox Live is built. We are currently hosting this on AWS. So there is a CloudFront distribution taking in user requests and serving the content then based on the route that is being accessed. For static content, we grab the files directly from the S3 bucket, and for API routes, it is handled with one of the Lambda at Edge functions. And then other server-side rendered stuff and dynamic routes are being provided by a second Lambda at Edge. So what were the challenges? When we started out on the project, and even during the early phases of taking it over, we faced some challenges, of course. And as mentioned before, the code base was already pretty large at that point. And even though there were some good developers working on it previously, a lot of different developers and different minds worked on it before. In addition, the development and the delivery was titled as fast and loose. So understanding and overseeing the current state of the project was a task on its own. And then as a consequence of this fast-paced and changing environment, there was a certain amount of tech debt, like unused code or outdated dependencies and insufficient tooling, which couldn't keep up with the changes and was never updated because there was no time, nothing planned in for that. And likewise, this also led to poor test coverage. Our challenge was to find and dedicate time for tackling this tech debt and improving this situation. And then another difficulty were team changes within our team as well. So as mentioned, we started out with 2 from within the team I'm in, and then we've had 6 out of the current 8 members join throughout the year. And this meant a huge chunk of our time was necessary to do the onboarding, the training, as well as managing all the different viewpoints and experiences. And this brings us to the present. What did we do along the way since then? So, well, we spent significant time and effort on tackling this tech debt and to overcome these challenges. We added a dedicated staging environment for better testing and release sign-off. We did lots of refactoring and removed unused code, scripts, and resources. We fully integrated the project into SonarQube for code quality analysis. We increased code coverage in line with that. We eliminated reported bugs and reduced so-called code smells and code duplication as well to clean up all of the code and make it less prone for errors and bugs. We also added some linters and lint rules for CSS, specific ones for Next.js and so on. And incidentally, this also helps with the previous tasks about code quality analysis and improvement. So that goes hand in hand. And of course, we also updated the aforementioned outdated dependencies. And bigger ones include moving from Enzyme to React testing library and also upgrading React to version 18 back then. And of course, there were lots of other updates, but those were the noteworthy ones. Then in terms of tooling, we reworked our Jenkins integration by streamlining the deployment and also providing just more structure and automation. For example, automated tagging after releases and automated release note generation and so on. Just quality of life improvements for us as developers and for our team in general to deliver new releases. And we also moved the Git branching model to Git flow, even though it's more one of the older ones. For our use case, it provides and does a better job of handling our release schedule. And since the used build tool was also deprecated and lacks support for Next 13, we also looked into alternatives. So we investigated which other tools can we use to build and design the architecture of our product. So we looked into OpenNext, for example, and some other smaller ones. And we also did a proof of concept with Docker and EKS. Again, using AWS is one of our drivers in the cloud. And lastly, we also revamped the end-to-end testing by using Cucumber and Cypress. And we now have automated end-to-end tests running on every deployment. And also we have integration on Jira via X-Ray, which is nice for test reports. So let's wrap up the present day with some key takeaways. Some of you will rightfully think, well, they're obvious to you, but you're not the only developer working in larger projects. And it's also easy to lose track of some of these takeaways or key points during turbulent times when you have crunch times for releases, for example. So one of the key takeaways is to keep your dependencies up to date. Not only will you close security holes, but you will also benefit from new features and bug fixes. And upgrading to major new versions is also way easier if you're not several versions behind or adjacent libraries are outdated, which you then can't use with a new major version and so on. And then also take the time to tackle tech debt. Plan that in. Don't pile up a tech debt thinking you can deal with it later. To some degree, maybe, yeah, sure. But it adds layers upon layers upon layers. And then suddenly you have unforeseen side effects, and the tech debt is so large that you can that it's more feasible to start the project from scratch again. So make it clear to your project owner and manager and your team that these are sometimes necessary for the long-term goals and for the success of a project. And if you move to different versions or different libraries or different tools, migrate properly. And by that, I mean, keep your documentation up to date, remove unused code and resources immediately. Future developers will thank you instead of just scratching their head and going, what does this do? Can we delete that? Does it do something important that no one is allowed to touch? And also it's probably cheaper as well if you remove these resources from your cloud or from your servers, and if you remove them from your tooling. So keep that in mind. And then another obvious point is use Prettier for formatting and linters. So with that, you can not only align the formatting throughout your developing team, but you can also catch issues very, very early before this code or this issue even hits your code base. And then also do code reviews. It's another step to spot potential problems, again, before they hit your code base or before they hit your production servers. So there's also another huge benefit with the code reviews. For example, when you're developing a feature in isolation and another person has to touch that feature, they always have to look through the code. Okay, how was that built? And then maybe I have to ask something, the developer who did that before about it. With code reviews, you have the benefit that several people already know how a specific feature is built. And it also helps your team alignment. So teammates will know how you develop things, what to look out for, and also there's a process of learning how to do things better, how to do things in alignment with the team. All right, so as you've seen, we did quite a few changes already on the project. So what's next for Pressbox Live and for us as a development team? At least for 2024, we've already made plans to move the current architecture away from this Lambda at Edge approach and with CloudFront and the outdated build tool to use Docker and move it into an EKS cluster. This way we can get rid of this outdated build tool and also finally do Next.js upgrades to version 13 or newer. And another benefit this gives us is that we have more flexibility in terms of the backend. So we can do more with that. We're not limited by Lambda at Edge, and we have full Node.js at our hands to use. Then another topic we're going to tackle is, or continue to do, is reach our test coverage goals for the legacy code base. So with our new code, we tend to strive we tend to strive for 80% test coverage and some kind of other metrics. And our goal is to also lift up the old code base to that standard. Then later in the year, there's another huge project we're going to tackle. We will start with a rewrite of the adjacent user management tool, which handles all the user permissions and, for example, which seasons and sports the users are allowed to access. And then some of my personal stretch goals, which I'm not sure we're going to tackle, but maybe, are that we could maybe include new sports to Pressbox Live. And for us as developers, a huge benefit would be to have some kind of on-demand QA environments. So think about you make a pull request, you want to do some testing, and on which environment do you test that? And dedicated QA environments are way more handy and more beautiful to tackle that, which we can then probably just spin up on demand on EKS. Yeah, and maybe one of you wants to join us in getting these things done next year or beyond that. So this concludes the information part, or at least the presentation. And if you have any follow-up questions, just feel free to ask them now, or if you don't want to ask them right now on stage, just reach out to me, or maybe something comes up later.
Thank you very much, Johannes. We do have a couple of questions here directly, so maybe we can cover them. I will publish the first one and can read it for you, so then you can answer. The question is, can you explain how Pressbox Live integrates with other systems and what APIs or services it commonly interacts with?
Sure. So one of the services that we are using is Auth0 for user management and some stuff. And other APIs we're using are, of course, all the data APIs that StatsPerform provides. So we are using an API called SD API. We are using an API called Stats API. So there's various kinds of sports APIs throughout the company that we are leveraging in Pressbox Live, sometimes directly from the web app, and sometimes by proxying these requests through our backend to these APIs, depending on if we need to hide credentials behind an additional layer or not.
Okay, perfect. We do have also a second question, which is placed by David. And the question is, in the development of Pressbox Live, PBL, how did you ensure scalability and handle potential high traffic events? Which we actually experienced a couple, especially last year, but even this year, it has been quite busy tool.
Yeah, so in the initial design of the product, we were not the current team was not involved, but during these high load terms, there is mostly the load is not on our application, but on the APIs that we leverage. And these APIs are specifically made for handling high loads of requests. In terms of our own application, we are hosted on AWS. We are using CloudFront and Lambda at Edge. And these already provide some kind of stability through high loads. by using caching techniques and other scalability techniques. And yeah, so that's
okay.
it.
Okay. One more question appeared, but we have one more in the queue. So let me ask that one and or publish it first and ask. It is from Yuri, and it's about testing. So how do you approach testing and quality assurance in the Pressbox Live development process?
Yeah, so in the development, it's on the developers to also include unit and component tests. We have, as I mentioned before, we have an 80% coverage goal. Of course, there's some leeway sometimes, depending on if we also touch some legacy code or not. But that's already one thing that developers need to do: the unit and component testing. Then we also have dedicated Q&A engineers, which handle our end-to-end testing. And whenever we develop a new feature, not only will we run the unit and component tests automatically before code is being able to be merged into our code base, but when we deploy code, we will also run all the automated end-to-end tests. And then we also have manual tests that are being run whenever there's a pull request as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm now also sharing a slide from the presentation where there are contacts on Johannes and also his LinkedIn profile. So feel free to use that if you have any following question. But we have also final one over here, which I'm going to ask. Anonymously, someone is saying that it might be a stupid question, but there is no stupid question. There are just stupid answers. So the question is where all the data is coming from. I mean, things like data visualization about tournaments and how this data visualization works?
Yeah, good question. So for some of these visualizations, we are building them on our own. So our development team gets the requirement to add certain visualizations. So we get the design from the design team, and then we implement that. For others, we are using already existing visualizations from our widget teams from within the company. And so there's a mixture of already built visualizations from within another team, or we build them out ourselves. And the data for these is coming from these various APIs like SD API and Stats API that we're using.
Perfect. Johannes, thank you very much for that. We actually was thinking about giving you some present as we are approaching the festive season, and it is very difficult to provide some present virtually. But in the end, we have decided that we will give you a small present, which is a time. So I really appreciated you dedicated hour for us, as we usually have but we really try to scratch the information as we are provided as much as it is possible, because before Christmas, everyone from us might welcome extra time. So here it is. We have not covered for a whole hour. Use the remaining time as you wish. Thank you, Johannes, for joining and preparing the presentation for us. Is there anything else in the end what you want to share?
Yeah. If you're interested in anything that I've presented today, reach out and maybe we will become colleagues. And even if not, I wish everyone Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hopefully. So this was all from us from Prague Live. Thank you very much for joining, for being with us this year, and we are looking forward to meeting you next year, potentially on another meet and greet session. Have a Merry Christmas and all the best for the new year.